we've heard from a whole variety of different perspectives in the last hour or so, with all of them talking about elements of the challenges and what the opportunities are attached to reforming education. I think we heard that the province understood through Mr. Treadwell the challenges that are out there, the need to reform and the will to do so, the will to look at certain things, people being the most important resource. We heard locally more from Greg in the district about the frustration of running into old structures that stop the types of things that you want to do in the schools, that you have run into barrier after barrier because of the system in place if you want to try to change that, mostly directed at the professional educators. Ms. Molly spoke about that you can get by them, that there are models that work, that there are ways to get around that you have to think about things differently, and that if you do that different thinking, you'll look at it in a different way altogether. And I think we ended interestingly about the role of form with function, and that some of the points that we heard about the primacy of the educator, the need for the educators to collaborate, the need and ability in their day to be able to work on topics that they can't do right now, the need for funding to do it, the need for design, the need for as those barriers change, that the function and the form both match into something new. So I think we've had a very interesting set of conversations so far, and what I would like to do is, while we still have everybody online or here present, I'd like to open it up to the floor for the types of questions you might have about any particular part or any particular element that spoke to you as this was going on. I, for one, might want to start off with that about we're still talking about public education. We're still talking about fairness and equity, but we're talking about it doing it differently.
Can you hear me, James?
I can, yeah.
Okay, and this is also for Mr. Treadwell and Mr. Ingersoll. One of the questions, we got started almost 2 years ago because of an idea of maybe closing down our 70-year-old middle school and taking those kids and putting them into our 45-year-old high school. And a lot of people right out of the gate felt that wasn't going to be the right answer for our kids. And that's really what got Sackville Schools 2020 going. But one of the questions that's come up over time is, as the architects and the budgets and the builders all come together, if the final solution is combining schools still, is that a good idea? What are the issues around putting kids, whether they're in grade 4, 5, 6, wherever that would start, through to grade 12 in the same school, or even a larger swath? I don't know. And I don't know. We don't know the answer. We have 3 separate schools, and our kids went through a certain way. What are your comments on kind of having a larger age range in a school, not just the 4 years that we see in our schools here? They kind of move as a group together every 4 years. And can you speak to that? And I guess other experiences across the province. Again, the only experience we have here is our schools, which have been set up this way for a very long time. So that's my question. Any kind of experience you can or insight you can give us on that would be great.
Yeah, sure. I can comment on that. So we actually see that as a trend happening of combining more grade levels together. We especially see an elementary school and middle school being combined a lot. That's kind of a current trend that's happening. And we've also have seen a lot of K through 12 schools as well. And so the key, though, to it is it's not thinking about the whole school as a big school. It's really about thinking of learning communities within a school and breaking down that scale into kind of smaller schools. And so a number that we like to use, it's actually based on an anthropologist, Dunbar. It's called a Dunbar number, which she basically says that as human beings, it's harder, once you get beyond 150 people, it's hard to have a real kind of intimate relationship with that person. And so what we would do is we break down a school into learning communities that are smaller scale. And so you'd have some elementary level learning communities, you'd have some high school level learning communities, and the design could be in a way that it could be in one building and kind of separated, but they would essentially interact a lot within that learning community. At times they may come together, but usually they kind of really stay within that learning community. The one thing, though, a real benefit of this is when you start to think of, different ages and combining different ages together like this. Some of the other presenters were talking about, age. Why do we group students together at one age? You can start to really now think about cross-grade groupings, and you can start to think about how you can have older students, for instance, mentor younger students. And so it really allows you a lot of different opportunities there. But I guess getting back to your core question there, to make it work, you really have to think about how it can be broken down into different learning communities. And we do see it happening quite a bit. Definitely a trend that we see happening.
So I'm going to thank everybody, first of all, for coming. I want to thank in particular our speakers, both electronically here and in person. It's been an interesting set of very short but very content-heavy material that we've talked about today. What I would like to do, though, is maybe ask Craig, saying a little bit about where Sackville Schools 2020 is at, and maybe the question of where it goes from here, whether there might be some follow-up for some of the items that came out today, if you wouldn't mind, Craig. I'm just throwing this on him now.
So just a quick update. As Greg mentioned, there's a whole process that works within the district and the district education council, and then that goes to the province. So really over the last year and a half, we've met with people at the Department of Education, the minister, assistant deputy minister. We've met with the DEC a number of times. We've met with Greg and his staff up in Moncton a number of times, and Bernard LeBlanc, who's our MLA, has also been very supportive of this project and very vocal at the cabinet table in trying to get it on the agenda. So there's a lot of moving pieces there, and we've had warm receptions in all those places, and there's a lot of work still ahead. First gate to get through is for a study, the Ernst & Young study, which is they're an accounting group. They go out and they start looking at Sackville and say, this is what the population is projected to be for about the next 20 years. We think it's going to be this many kids. That many kids will need this kind of physical footprint for the school. It takes into account French immersion. You need a little bit more space for French immersion. It takes into account a number of things like that. And they kind of come up with, as we understand, a dollar figure that says it's going to cost X amount of dollars to repair these schools, and that's no longer a good investment. This is what the future requirement is. This is how much money it is. This is what we can project for population and students. And then that ends up being the ask that the District Education Council will decide if they want to prioritize that ask and then send it on to the province. So we've got to get that feasibility study done, and then have the DEC look at it with the other priorities within the district and say, yes, that's something that we think should be prioritized to the provincial level. So to our understanding, that study comes back next month, and then obviously we'll be following up with Michelle and the DEC to see where things are going from there, and all the while kind of staying in touch with the other groups that we've been working with since then. So that E&Y study, the Ernst & Young study, was a huge step forward, and nothing happens till that study starts. So we were really glad to hear that was underway. So we do have the other thing we want to do is have a community visioning event. I think we have to tie that timing into some of the things that Greg had said, and figure out what flavor that really takes. Our initial feeling is maybe try and get that done before the end of the year. We do want to have some real professional facilitation of it, though, which means we got to put some money together to make that happen. But if we can kind of get the right parties together, so we have a really, really productive session, we're going to try and get that done in the next couple of months.